Way is about community. And while our preference would have been to do this in person, that's clearly not possible. First, a housekeeping item. We won't have sufficient time for Q&A today, but please feel free to offer any suggestions or comments by emailing charlotte@uwgv.ca anytime. And we will commit to responding to you at our earliest opportunity. United Way's attention has been squarely focused on the COVID-19 pandemic since March. The Local Love in a Global Crisis campaign was quickly launched, and I want to thank my team for their dedication and hard work in making this important campaign a reality. I want to thank all the individuals and businesses who have donated to date. All donations will stay local to improve lives. I also want to salute the generosity of our community overall and the work of other fundraisers, including the Victoria Foundation, Joel Family Foundation, and Times Colonist for their wonderful work with rapid relief. I would also like to thank the federal and provincial governments for their support and leadership. We at United Way Greater Victoria are committed to the need to collaborate with local leaders on innovative solutions while continuing to deal with the unignorable. Local Love is now shifting to raise donations to support the social service sector in recovery, rebuilding, and resilience. This virtual cafe webinar series has goals of transparency and communication, ensuring we bring the best and brightest thought leaders across Greater Victoria. Together, we'll explore solutions to the many and new community challenges. I know you will be impressed with my fellow panel members. These are leaders who have already launched incredible initiatives for our community. Sandra Richardson is CEO, Victoria Foundation. Sandra has been a member of the Canadian Association of Gift Planners for well over a decade. Under her leadership, the Victoria Foundation has grown substantially, and the foundation is a key partner in rapid relief. Mandy Farmer is President and CEO of Accent Inns. Mandy has been recognized as Hotelier of the Year by the Pinnacle Awards. Accent Inns partnered with United Way and created the Hotels for Frontline Workers Fund, where we've raised approximately $100,000 to date. That's $100,000. Darlene Hollstein is General Manager of the Bay Centre. In April, the Bay Centre and United Way launched a Feed Our Community campaign, partnering with Earl's Kitchen. A longtime leader in business and in community work, I am so pleased to advise that Darlene is this year's United Way Local Love campaign chair. And we have Kristi Rivait, co-founder of Scale Collaborative. Thanks to Kristi and her team, their expertise brings not-for-profit and social enterprise great assistance within Greater Victoria. And Kristi will share some insights on a wonderful partnership we launched through Local Love. To ensure that we make the very best of our time today, I'm so pleased to welcome CBC's Gregor Craigie as our moderator. Gregor is no stranger to global news stories, and his career has taken him to the BBC in London, where he also reported for CBS and CBC. He is host of On the Island. Gregor, thank you so much for joining us, and over to you.
Thank you, Mark, and thanks to everyone for taking part. It's a pleasure to do this. We're all relying more on community, I think, than we have in a long time during these difficult times. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks to our panelists, especially. I want to jump right into it because, of course, everyone's busy and we don't have that much time. I want to ask Mandy and Darlene and Kristi each the same question to start off. And Mandy, I'll start with you if I can. Each of you have been so heavily impacted, your business because of this. Mandy, that must be the case in the hotel industry. It has to be, and yet you haven't just looked inward. You've all launched significant community outreach programs. Mandy, can you tell us a bit more about what you did? Mark referenced it there, but what did you do and why?
Sure. You know, when this first hit, the first thing we did was we wanted to make sure that we kept our team safe. And then after that, we realized, wow, this is such a crazy crisis that we're in. how can we help? And so we heard about nurses sleeping in their cars, and we thought, wow, we've got to do something there. So we immediately put out a rate that was rock bottom. And then as soon as we did that, people started phoning us saying, hey, how can I help pay for that nurse's room or that grocery store clerk's room? And so we got on the phone, we called Mark, and immediately that weekend, we all jumped into hyperdrive and we put together this, this donation page. And we were able to raise over $100,000, which has allowed for a lot of these workers to stay safe, keep their families safe at our properties. And the cool part about it is that if you're working at a grocery store, if you're a nurse, no one wants to pay rent twice. And so now it allows them to stay with us without having to worry about their family. From there, we then took it a little bit further. We kept asking, well, how more can we help? And so we started partnering with schools, and schools started to draw pictures and thank you notes to all of these workers so that when they come in after their long shift, they're greeted on their door with all this amazing artwork from elementary school students. So it's been a really heartwarming experience for us all.
And Darlene, what about yourself at the Bay Center? How have you responded with community in mind?
Yeah, you know what? Obviously, first thing, you take care of everybody within your home, if you will, and our offices. And then together we all, you know, you're feeling a little like, yeah, I need to do more. I need to give back. And so collectively, we kind of thought, you know, how can we help? You know, we had, you know, fairly few retailers still operating, and with Earl's Kitchen and Bar actually pivoting their business to be more of a grocery delivery and creating baskets that customers could get at quickly. They were able to then work with them and go, hey, you know, who else have we worked with in the community? And United Way, we have such a great partnership with them in the past on numerous different projects that we thought, let's partner with them and see if they'll want to do this with us. And it was a great initiative in the fact that we could actually come together and create these individual grocery packs for everyone that you purchase. We would do one to a local families in needs and seniors, and those are just obviously struggling during this time. So super excited that we were able to do that. We were able to deliver those packages yesterday, and you know what, tears in your eyes because you just realizing you're making a big difference. And although it wasn't a big deal, you know, and asking people to and purchase some groceries and you know, deliver some to people that are much more needy in the community than ourselves. So yeah.
That's great to hear. Kristi, what about yourself? How has Scale Collaborative been affected, and how have you pivoted and turned it into something positive for the community?
Thanks, Gregor. Scale Collaborative works with hundreds. We've interacted and worked with hundreds of organizations in our region since COVID's even begun, and that's really our specialty, is sitting and helping nonprofit organizations become financially strong. And what we were seeing and what we think is going to happen is that nonprofit organizations across the sector are really going through three phases. And one is that immediate response phase, one is that recovery phase, and one is that resilience phase. And in Scale, we started looking at, we look at that resilience piece, and I want to just give a quick shout out to Victoria Foundation. We do have a over 5-year partnership right now with Victoria Foundation that provides Thriving Nonprofit program that really focuses on nonprofit organizations and their long-term resilience and financial strategies. So we knew that that's the end game. The key is always to get those organizations where they can survive these kind of crises. COVID obviously has been very different than any crisis that our sector has faced. And so we started looking back and going, these organizations are having to do an immediate response inside their organization and for community. So how do they sustain themselves while they're trying to do this response so that they can even get to a road to recovery? And so we were very pleased that Vancity's come on as a part of a supporter, and that United Way wanted to partner and really step into the space and really meet those nonprofit organizations where they're at today, so that they can start to, move forward. So we have launched a Survive and Thrive program, which is really a very quick, fast, rapid relief program for nonprofits and charities that allow them to sort of think about their response. How do they cash flow that response over the coming months? And really, as they make asks to different funders for these amazing funds that community has pulled together, like the Rapid Relief Fund, how are they really thoughtful in those asks that allows them to utilize those dollars and maximize those dollars to keep their operations going, survive, and even get to that place of thriving. So we're just so happy that United Way sort of like offered this service out to their organizations and that we can start them on the road to recovery. Because we really see that once organizations are on that road to recovery, they can tap into community programs like the Thriving Nonprofits that will build that long-term resiliency inside of them. And really for community well-being, we need a strong, effective, resilient nonprofit sector for community well-being for all.
These are great examples to hear of innovative and collaborative solutions. And I want to ask each of you, Sandra and Mark, how you see the Victoria Foundation and the United Way supporting a more open and collaborative fundraising model to inspire innovation. Sandy, can I ask you first? Now you're muted, Sandy. We'll just get you to unmute yourself and carry on.
Here.
There you go.
Okay, thank you. First of all, the Victoria Foundation is not traditionally a fundraising organization, and nor do we just focus on one sector. We're usually very broad in scope. But when it comes to partnerships and collaboration, I think that's where we really shine. So in March, we were approached by local business and a corporate sector to launch a fund which we call the Rapid Relief Fund, which has just closed today. It has raised $6 million, $5 million of that already out in the community, and to, I think, over 83 local charities at this point. So looking ahead, I think the foundation will continue to look for these unique partnerships and collaborations, especially to harness the potential of the business and the corporate community to work together to do community good.
And Mark, what about yourself? What would you say for United Way? How do you think you can support more open and collaborative fundraising models to support innovation, especially?
Well, today's webinar is one such example. I think it's really convening, networking, bringing parties together. And I do want to say from the outset, as Victoria Foundation, United Way, we're watching things like all citizens evolve real time. To the extent we could, very early on, began to exchange ideas, had a participant on some of where the funds were being directed to rapid relief, so we could all be privy to ensure we weren't duplicating effort. So much need out there, and so much of a requirement to work jointly. And so I think that's key. That's very much what we do. We worked on 90 programs this past year impacting local citizens, and so it's very much within our spirit.
I want to ask, turn back to Darlene and Mandy and Kristi and talk a bit more about your own needs and the needs you see in the community and what you think might be a hopeful sign. Darlene, can I ask you first of all, what might be your needs, but what also gives you hope for recovery here in Greater Victoria?
Yeah, you know what, just reflecting on what we need to do in our community and what's working, I think we're extremely resilient on the island because we are on an island, right? So you need to work together a little bit more, create our networks. And I think a lot of us had a lot of great networks in place before this happened, such as the Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce, Destination Greater Victoria, Downtown Business Association, Biotech, UDI, all those guys are out there helping us right now to connect, to bring the resources, to be our voice in multiple areas across all the government levels across Canada, to help get us to a point where we can survive and then start to gear back up to get open for business again in a safe manner. And I think that's the part that we're all, obviously we're all in unprecedented time, and we're all trying to kind of scramble, pivot, change our business models to make them work in this moment. And I think honestly, if we didn't have those groups already in place, this would probably take us a lot longer to get to where we are today. I'm feeling, obviously super hopeful because we're working with our current networks within our community, and putting together really strong strategic plans to get our businesses ready to reopen for those of us that had to close. Many of my retailers didn't have to close, but they chose to close. So kind of helping them work together to kind of get geared back up, but on a bigger scale within the community, working together to get our community feeling comfortable to start back, coming back to our businesses again. So what I wanted to also say that if you haven't been part of these groups, that I encourage you to reach out and become a part of them, because this is what gets our businesses back operating faster, as well as the nonprofits as well. Like without them, had we not had such great organizations in place to date, we wouldn't be where we are today, moving as fast as we are. So I thank those organizations for being there for sure.
And Mandy, what about you? I mean, what are your needs at Accent Inns, and also what are your thoughts on the recovery, whatever it will look like here in Greater Victoria? Anyway.
Sure. First and foremost, what I've noticed is my own personal need, but also the needs of my team, and that is we want to help. Yeah. We all want to do something. We don't want to be sitting at home playing video games. Or watching Netflix. We want to do something. And that's what I noticed with my team when we started doing different initiatives. We were just like, okay, what can we do? How can we help? And, in the last week or two, we've been working with United Way because we've been bringing back all these people on wage subsidy. And, to be honest, I don't have a lot of work for them. So we're trying to figure out ways, well, how can we get our team to come back to work, but actually they're going to volunteer. So, just really trying to be creative about things like that. I think in terms of recovery, what I love is that there is such a shift towards buying local. We've all talked about it for years, and now suddenly we're doing it. We're really thinking twice about buying that book on Amazon, and instead we're phoning Russell Books. And I see that consistently, and that is really heartwarming. And I think that's going to be amazing for our recovery. At Accent Inns, we just recently took a look at our supplier list, and we've got 8 hotels in BC, and we're going to buy all of our soap from a local BC company. And when I say soap, I mean shampoo, conditioner, bars of soap, body wash. So there's ways that we can all make a difference in this local community, and I see that as really, really helping us to thrive in the coming year.
And Kristi, how about you? Based on your own needs, how do you see the recovery, and what makes you hopeful for the recovery here in Victoria and BC as a whole?
I'm really hopeful in a couple ways, and it builds on a bit of what the other panelists were sort of saying. Darlene, and this collaboration and partnership, this ability to mobilize resources and really to look, as Mark was saying, not at duplicating, but how as an organization, just like United Way did, how as an organization can we step into where there's a gap and help solve that gap, right? So I'm hopeful for the amount of people and donors that keep giving, and I would encourage, if people are able, to please continue to give either directly to organizations or to organizations such as this Rapid Relief Fund, so that we can disperse them throughout our nonprofit sector, because they will be the backbone, can become the backbone of our economy as well. They are locally driven, and I'm excited about this switch in the supply chain, and is looking at all the local purchasing power local, as well as how we do our own supply chain locally. And I would encourage that organizations and hotels and restaurants and everyone really look at social enterprises and nonprofits to really fit those spots on their supply chain. They have a lot to offer, and building that kind of Social procurement contracts into social enterprises and nonprofits really builds financial resilience long-term for them. So.
This is affecting so many people and agencies and companies in different ways, and there's a lot of different examples of innovation. Mark, can you share some more with us, a few examples of how other United Way programs you're funding might see companies and organizations having to pivot and innovate as a result of all of this?
I've seen a fair bit of it, and perhaps I could categorize in a few different areas. One, the transformational. So a great supporter of ours, Phillips Brewery, started to produce hand sanitizer. We've used that for some frontline initiatives. The United Way is a great supporter of BC 211. So that is a call text offering. And what we've seen is a massive mobilization right across the province, more services offered, more specifically catered in some cases to seniors, and all of that executed from a call center based in the Lower Mainland, but very quickly had to operate from home. So all the call center agents operated from home. So that was really interesting and transformational. New learning, I think we'd see a theme here of digital, people ordering locally, hopefully online for the first time in many cases. And so digital savvy has been a trend in terms of new learning. And I guess the other big piece is building on mobilization around collaboration. And we put a few programs together that we called our neighborhood response team, and mobilized with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Hero Work, a number of agencies we work with, and actually pivoted to do a hygiene drive where we offered agencies all various hygiene products brought together by the collective force, where 2 + 2 was greater than 5, and really made a difference. So those were lots going on.
And Sandra, what about the Victoria Foundation? As a community foundation, how have you had to change your focus to better serve the community due to COVID-19?
Well, I think primarily when we look at our past granting process, we were really driven to, funding projects, etc. And I think have not always invested in the core operations of nonprofits. And I think COVID has really exposed some vulnerabilities in the sector. As an example, when the world went virtual in just a matter of a week, many of these nonprofits did not have up-to-date technology to quickly adapt their programs and make their programs accessible to all. So within some of the rapid relief response, it's provided some grants to organizations to be able to purchase computers and update their systems that they could successfully work virtually. So like counseling services, etc. All of a sudden it was just magic for them. So we anticipate that changeover for us in our granting process will be driven largely by how do we support core operations and administrative supports moving forward so that they can adapt and meet the needs of all citizens.
It's great to hear about the innovation and the collaboration that's going on in some cases. They seem like real silver linings to me. I want to open it up to all 5 panelists. So feel free to jump in. We'll see how this works on Zoom. But any other examples that any of you can point to that just really show the type of innovative or collaborative thinking that either that's happened, that's really helped, anything else, or that you think is needed, what might be needed going forward? Any thoughts from any 5 of you on that?
I just wanted to say in the retail aspect, what we're starting to see, and we've already started to see it with many of our retailers that are still operating, curbside pickup. I don't know if you, I don't know how old everyone is, but this used to be a thing many, many years ago. I come from the prairies, so in the prairies it's very cold. So curbside pickup was a thing, but it's actually something you're going to see a lot more of as people have different levels of comfort to come back out into the community. So, and multiple different ways of transacting. You know, definitely still on the phone is a way to do business, but online and online tutorials on how to cut your hair, how to color your hair. You know, and I've seen a lot of curbside pickups already for hair salons, mixing your color. And I have this work right across the street from one, so I'm watching them all day long and I'm like, brilliant. So they've been creating these services already, working around and making sure that they're following all the safety rules. But that definitely is something you're going to see a lot more of in our industry.
I've got two examples. You happen to be on this panel. One is United Way. When we started working with them, I think I had this stereotype of what the United Way was, which was, you know, pretty rigid. And wow, Mark and Heather, they blew me away by how fast, nimble, and creative they were. And it was really, really inspiring. And what I got from it was that they were like, you know what, these are crazy times. We're going to figure out how to make it work. And that really inspired our team. So that the second example was actually my team who thought, you know what, we don't have to do business the way that we've always done business. And so, you know, we had all these rooms at Hotel Z, and we thought, okay, we can't sell hotel rooms right now. Why don't we see if we can provide a service for all those families out there who, you know, have got like, you know, 4 Zoom calls going on because their kids are at home, the dog's barking, the baby's crying, to provide an office space. So rather than sell hotel rooms, it was office space. And it just is, it really, you know, big shout out to my team for thinking outside the box in these crazy times.
Those are great examples.
Yeah, I think a couple that I've seen that have been really neat would be even our bigger stores like London Drugs putting shelves that they're going to offer local space for local suppliers to sell their goods. I think that's really neat. The BC Farmers Market going mobile. That's they're just great innovations and stuff. And I think I'm excited. And if I look at a larger scope and a big global sort of look, I'm loving that the renewable resources are starting to have bigger returns than the oil-based resources returns. And so I think it's going to continue to encourage impact investing and that blending of community well-being in our economy. And I'm really hopeful and excited for these kind of innovative ideas that supports really you know, respectful economy that makes the world better as well. So
I would just highlight the food distribution center on Viewfield as well. In these times became challenged with, you know, social distancing of volunteers and where food was going to have to go. And it is just amazing how they have solved those challenges and how food is being delivered all over by volunteers. We've got plumbing trucks in the community delivering some of these foods, and the creativeness of our supermarket. We have had supermarket summits to talk about how to continue to distribute food, and every one of these supermarkets have stepped up and have been creative. And also what we're seeing with a lot of the programs are restaurants coming out and preparing dishes that are also being delivered to some of our families and that too. So it's just amazing what people will do. And I think it points to some of what Mandy said. They want to volunteer, they want to engage, they want to be involved. And I think that's maybe the very heart of this community. And I think it provides them with some hope of helping and making a difference too.
Great insights all across the piece. I just add a couple of observations. We've all lived through this and read the prognosticators. And it's really interesting because the disruptors have been somewhat disrupted, whether you're in ride sharing, just given obviously the physical realities here, but ride sharing, Airbnb, eat with, it's pretty tough to go dine with strangers in the current world. So what is, this is back to the future, and how do we recalibrate here and look at opportunity, innovation within that? Because that's been pretty seismic. And the other one is the adage around think global and act local. So I think there's a great opportunity for all of us to also look at best practitioners everywhere. And to the extent we can implement locally, we should, because there's a ton of great ideas out there. So great examples. I just wanted to offer that.
It is good to hear all of the positivity, but just let me be a journalist for a second and point out, this is just a catastrophic economic downturn. And I know you know that, but just to bring it around to the sobering part of this, the gaps and the challenges, where do each of you see the gaps that currently exist? And what advice do you have on a local business and government and not-for-profits can fill those gaps during this new normal, as people keep calling it? Anyone want to jump in on that one?
I'll start. Being in the heart of downtown for many years, watching what's going on in the heart of our community. As we all know, when we went into this pandemic, we already had a crisis in our community with homelessness and the opioid crisis. Obviously this has kind of taken our minds off of it a bit, but the reality is those folks, and there's many of them out there that are struggling, and I know that the government has stepped up in a lot of ways to help all of these folks to get out of off the street, out of tents, into many of the hotels and motels in our community. But I like to sit here and just kind of ponder for a moment, and I hope others are as well. And I'd like to encourage governments at multiple levels to really take this opportunity, and I think it's an opportunity in this particular area, to maybe help and focus on our homelessness. And I'd love to say, wouldn't we be able to end homelessness, but get an actual solution to our issues in our community and really across Canada at the end of the day. So that would be my hope out of this pandemic. If you could find one win, could we solve homelessness or some version of that to help these folks?
Thanks, Darlene.
I would say too, as we look forward to the gaps, tomorrow is the launch of a provincial survey. We partnered with Vancouver Foundation and Vantage Point, and to look at what the sector needs. And just without giving it all away, but 78% of them indicate a disruption of services to clients and communities. 52 are seeing an increased demand for service. 74% are experiencing reduced fundraising dollars, no surprise there. 68% are experiencing challenges related to staff and volunteer work, needing to work remotely. 35% have reduced hours for staff because of budgetary restraints. 15 to 19% are anticipating closing down. 23% do not think they could exist longer than 6 months. And 40% have had or anticipate laying off staff. So the road ahead of us certainly has some bumps, but it's research like this that gives us a chance to dig a bit deeper and really answer some of the things that they're putting before us. So check our website tomorrow and you'll see the full report.
Thanks, Sandra.
Yeah, I would see a gap, and building off the Sandra, I think that some of our nonprofit organizations, the natures of how money and grants come into organizations, some of our sector is spending tomorrow's money today. And that is, we could see a delayed crisis hit our nonprofit sector because of this. And so gaps that can be help filled in this immediate moment. And I know it's for business as well as organizations across the sector, is really that rent relief. And some of those hardcore costs that are very difficult. And so The solution, and I'm not 100% what the solution is. I think it's going to come from individual conversations as well around how can you support some, some landlords are allowing them to defer rent, but they'll still have to pay that when it comes back. And is there a way for them to do that over a very long period of time? Or is there a way for owners of property to be able to balance out, just like do a reduction of rent and just support in some really real cost that organizations are being faced with right now?
I've got a gap that is totally on a different level. And that is, working from my home office, I see, you see more and hear more because we're in our communities. And one of the gaps that I see is, how do we be social while still being socially distant without shaming? So I live near Gonzales Beach, and on the weekend it was so hot and warm, and everyone's down there, and I could hear people talking as they walked by, saying, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. This is terrible." And I thought the same myself, and I thought, I need to walk down there and just see what's going on. And as I walked down there, I realized, wow, these people are sitting on the beach, but they're actually being socially distant. But yet there's this shaming. And so the gap that I would like to see is a kindness campaign where, we all pledge to be socially distant, but yet still social and kind. That's what I'd love to see.
Building on a few of the thoughts, I see a gap with, as Sandra spoke to, this really rich qualitative data that's coming. The world's moving so rapidly, it's how to take stock and actually have the quantitative, some of the stats and facts behind what all has happened here. It is moving at such incredible speed. So specific, for instance, to healthcare, there certainly have been reports that with the shift in resources and focus and the move to virtual assessments online, there will actually be better data and better opportunity to get in. And could this actually address some of the wait lists, et cetera? But not to in any way understate where you open this piece, Gregor. It is severe, and there are so many areas, and data and kindness and feedback and all the things mentioned are mission critical.
I want to ask Mark and Sandy specifically about some of the assistance that's already been announced. The federal government recently announced $350 million in funding to be split between the United Way, the community foundations, and the Red Cross. And we don't have the Red Cross here today, but Mark and Sandy, can you both comment on how you envision next steps? Sandra, can you start us off on that one?
For sure. And of course, when you hear that great big $350 million, but what actually comes to our community will certainly be a small portion, sort of based on population and also what our various organizations do. But our goal is this funding will arrive at about the same time. So how, for instance, can we work together, United Way and ourselves, to have this funding go out, because it's a short window to release these funds as well, so that we're doing this in, together in a unified way. Now, we've just had that sort of conversation, but then it's just, we haven't ironed out the wrinkles yet, because we have to see the direction that we're given from the feds. But we just feel it's, whatever the amount is, we would both love to see around 750,000 each coming to this community. But that's, I'm just making that figure up. We have not been told that. But that's just, when you think of that great big ball of wax, it's not that much to spread across our vast country, but our hope is to come together and as some form of partnership to release these funds out together. And Mark, you may have changed your mind overnight.
I would add that, very much committed. We've had a few discussions, as Sandra has mentioned, details to follow. We're grateful for the generosity of the federal government, and we want to make it as seamless for the many in need out there to come to any of the three of us. There is some discussion. It's premature to say that the Red Cross will have more of a focus and opportunity around personal protective equipment. So they're part of this dialogue as well. But it's a real opportunity to present to community in a very collaborative way. And we are all committed to making it as easy as possible for anyone to go through a process to submit and apply for the funding.
And May 19th is the announcement, right?
All right, May 19th. We're short for time today, and I want to ask all five panelists for final thoughts. But just before we get there, I want to ask both Mark and Sandy briefly if there's any other communities or cities or regions or what have you that you think are providing inspiration of their own, in whatever way it is, innovation or collaboration or what have you. Mark, any other community that jumps to mind right now is a good example of what might work here as well?
There are several out there. We, as part of United Way, while our focus is very much local in Greater Victoria, we're fortunate to have access to other areas. There's a really interesting concept out of Calgary's United Way called the Social Impact Lab. It's a partnership with a digital marketing agency and really looks at design thinking, a collaborative effort with business, individuals, not-for-profits, in terms of addressing solutions. So they had actually begun this program about a year ago, and it's evolved and made a quick pivot to evolving and responding to this crisis. So the kinds of topics that they, with some curriculum and focus, are looking to certainly solve, make inroads. So it's very progressive thinking, goes beyond some of the granting and some traditional approaches to fundraising. If I could add just one more, like Darlene, being from the prairies, I had a special spot for Fargo, North Dakota, and probably best known for the TV show. But they actually looked and did a collective ask of community and said, "Hey, we're in Fargo. We have lots of space here. So depending on your neighborhood, it's not quite the same for us here. What can we do? And let's have a technology bent and something around environmental friendliness." And so they pulled together the world's largest drone convention. I don't know the logistics around that, but it was really inspiring. But it really went out to community, so they built on that concept. So a lot of innovative things out there emerging out of necessity here in many cases.
And Sandra, one or two from you that popped to mind?
Certainly, we meet weekly with the top 12 community foundations across Canada just to hear what's going on. And some of the ideas around rapid relief came from other community foundations. For example, Seattle had a real COVID surge just before us. So the idea of how the rapid relief came together was born from an idea of them. And then sort of our online portal, etc., was from an idea of the Boston Community Foundation. We're also engaged in the Transatlantic Community Foundation Network. So we're starting to hear some of the things that are happening in Europe and how community foundations are working and what they say. So there's a good exchange of ideas. So it's just harnessing it all and making it very relevant to our community right now.
Well, I want to ask each for final thoughts on whatever it is we've discussed. Kristi, do you mind starting us off? What do you want to leave people thinking with?
I guess this is our moment. This is our moment in time as community. We've never had this moment before to redefine what our new normal looks like, what our economy looks like, and how we support each other as people. And let's use it. We're going to have a lot of people at the high levels of government wanting us to all go, lobbying to go back to the status quo. And let's keep what really worked and what didn't, and just make this a better world and wrapped in kindness. I agree with Mandy, like that kindness piece is that's what we're seeing. All of these innovations and all of these collaborations, partnership is really coming from a place of kindness. And it's pretty spectacular what we could do for our economy and our communities at this point.
Mandy?
I've seen two reactions. If you can lump it into two separate reactions. I've seen businesses either take a really fear-based approach, or I've seen them take a love-based approach. And it is so distinct, the differences. The fear-based ones have cut, they've slashed. You can just tell their employees, everyone is down, they're pessimistic. And then there's the companies that have really taken a love-based perspective, and they might be facing their bankruptcy, but they've still taken a love-based perspective, which is really, rallying their team and fighting. And it's those companies that I think have inspired us all, and again just make me optimistic for our future, because metrics aren't necessarily just about the bottom line. They're about, your company culture and your employees' engagement and all of these things that really matter, that make our community better. So it's all, a big shout out to all those love-based companies out there.
Darlene?
Yeah, I agree with both of you folks as well. The pandemic has actually provided a lot of opportunities for businesses to rethink their business models and pivot where possible. Obviously they've created more local partnerships and collaborations, but being able to be sustainable for a local community, economy, has never been more important. I see more businesses being more collaborative to come together to help one another, but ultimately, as the other two have said, we need to take care of each other first to be successful, and then before being more mindful of others and their needs, slow down, show more gratitude, be resilient. I think, and you see it every day, we are a community that truly cares, and we're always there and step up when absolutely needed. So I think if you could take one thing away from this today, volunteering and collaborating together has never been more critical to our survival as a community. Again, I keep reiterating we're on an island, so that's even more of our can and has been restricted. So it's never too late to get involved and join some of these business groups that I mentioned earlier today in the community. Obviously, United Way, the Victoria Foundation, the Volunteer Victoria. There's so many wonderful organizations and nonprofits to get involved with. But if you're not involved, you'd be surprised how much stronger you would be as a person, your organization, and the community as a whole. So working together makes us all super strong.
Thanks, Darlene. And Sandra, final thoughts from you?
For sure. I think this is our moment in time in particular to be real sector champions for this nonprofit charities, or as we know as civil society, and just to stand tall for them and realize the economic impact. People don't often realize what the sector contributes. And we did a study in 2018 on this, and they contribute over $1 billion a year to this economy. So it is an important sector. And my goodness, they're working like they've never worked before. And I think it's just time to, when you talk about kindness, to really think about the sector. And just one last note, we have a Random Act of Kindness Day that we celebrate every year. And Mandy, I certainly know who I'm going to phone first.
Thanks, Sandra. And Mark, I want to throw it to you for final thoughts and to wrap it all up for us as well.
Thank you, Gregor. Well, in so many respects, this evil pandemic has been the great equalizer. It doesn't discriminate, and we talk about sectors, but it's impacted everyone from business. It's really broken down whatever walls, because the impact has been similar to so many. I think there will be great opportunity to have more empathy. Everyone's that much more alert. To the extent we get back to whatever the new norm is in an office environment, need to respect that some will have great issue walking through the door for the very first time. So it's a very big challenge ahead, but again, it really opens up how everyone is so interconnected. So that's my take. There's just so much we've been living and learning through this. So thanks, Gregor. On that note, in closing, I want to thank you, Gregor, as well as Sandy, Kristi, Mandy, and Darlene. So much has been covered today, and so much more to talk about. We did record this webinar, and we will be posting it on our website, sharing it on social media as well. Our next local virtual cafe, this was a first, so we're all part of this pioneering experiment. Thank you. The next one will be early June, and we are trying to put forth seniors as the primary topic there, isolated seniors and emerging through this pandemic. So please stay tuned for more information. So thank you so much again to our panelists and to Gregor. You were invaluable, so respectful of your time. Ideas and innovation are what we need right now more than ever, and will help fill the gaps and provide what this community needs as we enter into recovery and ultimately the resiliency phase. The word hope was mentioned at least once or twice today. I hope we offered some of that today, and it's mission critical for going forward. So to all who attended today, thank you so very much. Again, some have asked for this in the recorded version, but we're very appreciative. Have a great day, and be safe out there.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you,
you.
Mark.
Thank you all.